Hi guys, I'm hoping that I can mute out the fan that is in the background right now. It's very warm here in New Zealand at the moment. This is Carolyn from All Things EFFY, and I am here today to go over, even though the AKV is so similar to the AK1, a lot of you are really brand new to tufting. You don't really know the AK1 anymore, so we're going to go through kind of what to expect when you get an AKV from All Things EFFY. And this is by far the best machine that I can recommend right now. I know there's a lot of customers who go for the AK Duo because it's got that loop pile head, and a lot of people think that they really want to do cut and loop pile, but I always recommend that you really look into what's involved in that machine and switching from cut to loop, and compare it to how you can do loop pile with this machine as well, with a hack. So it doesn't have a dedicated loop pile head, but pretty much any machine can do loop pile with a simple hack. So I'll show you that as well. I'll also show you how to change the tip size so that you can work with the different yarns that All Things EFFY sells. And yeah, so it's just kind of, I'll also show you like how to maintain it, and just some basic ways to troubleshoot as well. So let's just get started. So if you get the AKV not from my New Zealand shop, if you get it from Canada, the US, or Australia, you probably won't have this nice sticker on the top. When you get the AKV from here in New Zealand, where I am, I do print out this document that goes with the AKV. But if you're not in New Zealand and you're, again, in the US, Canada, or Australia, this is downloadable from the product page, and it's not the most detailed introduction, but it's just sort of shows you my YouTube channel, where you can go to get some FAQs and some basics of how to undertake your tufting process, at least from my perspective. And then it also gives you some warnings, like if the following things occur, contact us, because I think, as most of you are aware, we have a 6-month, a conditional 6-month warranty with our tufting guns. So it's really important that you follow all our instructions if you want to keep that valid. So yeah, so this sort of tells you what the basics of what you need, how to, and how to tuft. And I know words are sometimes hard for understanding things, so there are lots of videos as well. This is the manual that comes from the manufacturer with ours, and it just kind of tells you what all the parts are. It gives you some how to hook it on your fabric, and it tells you when to oil it. It does show you a little bit of how to thread, which is amazing. Honestly, the AK1 didn't come with anything like this, so this is lovely. And it also shows you kind of the basics of how to tuft, which I think they've done a pretty okay job with it. Okay, so now the AKV. So yeah, just a reminder, if you did not get this set of papers in with your AKV, go to the product and download this from the product site, or on the product page. That's what the word I was looking for, product page. Okay, so when you get this, the handle doesn't come screwed in. So we've got the handle, and it's important to make sure you get all the little parts with it. You get a threader, you get an oil container. So this can be, basically you just pop that little thing out and you can fill it with your own 3-in-1 oil if you don't want to buy an EFFY oil as well. We sell EFFY oil in our shops. So yeah, you can either get your own oil but to be safe, you can use our recommended oil, because then you know that you're following everything to a T that we've kind of suggested, at least for the first 6 months while you have the warranty. Then you get some spare parts. That's basically just 3 Allen keys, a couple of extra screws, and an extra pair of scissors. And trust me, that extra pair of scissors will come in handy. And luckily this has these short scissors, so again, a lot of you newer tufters aren't going to know about this, but the original tufting guns back in 2020 and earlier had like long scissors, so you had to actually take the whole machine apart in order to get your scissors in and swapped, and it was very finicky. It was a lot of unscrewing and screwing. These you can just slip in and out, and I will go over that as well. So definitely, I know there's a lot of people who open this up and they think, I don't really need this, and then they lose it. Keep these. Find a safe spot where you will remember that you put them, and keep them. It's also good to keep this box with the foam, so like if, say, you go on a vacation or you're away for a bit or you just don't tuft all the time, this is an excellent place to store your machine. So then you will get a wall plug. So this will be, depending where you bought from, if it's in Australia, it'll be the AU plug, like New Zealand. If you're in Canada and the US, it'll come with an American plug. Then you have the adapter. So this goes from the machine to the wall plug, and this basically converts the AC current that's coming from your wall into DC 24, is it 24 volt? Yeah, 24 volt DC for this machine. It's important to understand that if you do have older machines, this adapter is different than the AK1 and AK Duo adapter. It has a lower voltage. So again, if you are buying one of ours, make sure you use it with the correct adapter, because if you don't, you could end up it could end up overheating and you can damage the internal circuit. So please only use this adapter. What I do usually is I put a little piece of tape on it and I just write AKV, so then I know that these are the AKV ones. You can also just look at the bottom and you'll see 24 volts 5 amp, and then that's how you know that you're using the correct adapter. Also, take a photo of this so that if for some reason you cut the cord or this adapter if you have problems with it or something over time, or you want more than one, you can find AC DC adapters that are identical, as long as you get all the identical information. So you just have to look for the 100 to 200, 240 volts, 50, 60 amps, 2.5 amps, and then the out. So that's the input, and then you have the output. So just make sure it's exactly the same input and output, and that will be fine. You can replace it if need be. That's not a common issue, though, FYI, for the adapter to go. That's not something that happens very often. I think I've had, in the time I sold the AKV, which has been almost 2 years, and I've probably sold over 500 by now. I think I've had 2 people have an issue with that, and from my knowledge, from people who have contacted me, I only have had 1 AKV break, and it's with somebody who literally tufts every single day. So these are very durable machines. I expect for most people the lifespan of the AKV will be like upwards of 4 years, whereas the lifespan for the AK1 and the AK Duo, which obviously it varies depending on how people use it and how they take care of it, but I would say the average lifespan of it was about 2 years before something would start to give and you'd have to start replacing parts on it. But again, all depends on how you treat it, obviously. So that's not a rule of thumb. Okay, if we can get this out, this is your new AKV. So this is nice and lightweight, and it's just everything's enclosed, which is phenomenal. if you aren't familiar with AK1 or AK Duo or KRD ones, all the machines from way back, from 2020 to basically, I think it was like 2023 that this one came out. Or maybe it was 2024, I'm not sure. But anyway, if you're familiar with any of those, they had a motor on the top that generally had exposed wires. The brake also had a wire on the side, and basically with the AKV, they just got everything inside the handle and the body so that there's no exposed wiring, which makes it super safe and just super easy to use, and it eliminates a lot of the extra little things that could go wrong, like for particularly the brake, because it just sits here. It was easy to get your yarn like caught in it if you were tufting sideways, and it also, like, if it bent at all, then you'd have to it would make you think that the machine wasn't working. You have to reset the machine. It was just another one of those things that now that we've eliminated it, it just makes it so much easier. So we've got, what other features do we have on this? So I'm just going to add the handle. So the handle, I think this confuses some people. There's no nut. So this just simply screws in nice and tight, like that, and it just sits there like that. Okay, so like you do not need to have the nut there. If you want to get one, if you feel better about that, then you definitely can find one at your local hardware store. I do not know what size you need, but obviously that's something that you can do. So I always suggest, before you jump into plugging your machine in and giving it a go, don't even, I see how I haven't even undone the cord. Literally, I'm just going to move this wheel, which is actually connected to a pulley inside the machine, and I'm just going to rotate it to make sure everything's rotating nicely. And I'm going to look for the scissors. I'm going to look for the scissors coming out. I'm going to look for them snipping and then retreating back into the machine. Okay, so this is just good to see, and I will also go over measurements that you should take pretty much right when it comes out of the box, so that you have reference points, so that if you do any adjusting or anything comes loose or wiggles, which rarely happens but can happen, you have reference points to go back to, because not every single machine will come exactly identically. I mean, they're pretty damn close now, but it's always good to have the reference points of your own individual machine. So what else? I guess now we go into plugging the machine in. So I'll take this cord off. So plug it in, and I will then just plug it into my wall outlet. Okay, so everything's plugged in, and we are ready to turn it on. So to turn it on, you flick this switch here, and the light should go on, and this speed readout should also go on. So to make the machine go, press this trigger, and it should be set to the lowest speed setting, which is 1000. So just run it, make sure it sounds nice and soft. This machine hardly vibrates in comparison to the other ones. It's still got a little bit of a wiggle, but not nearly to the degree that the old machines did. And it's a lot more lightweight. I think you have to look at my website for the exact measurements, but I think it's almost like a half kg lighter, if not more. But the thing that I like about this is that it still is a kind of a traditional machine, in the sense it's got this handle, and it gives me a lot of control while tufting, which I just can't go without. Yeah, I need that handle and I need that control. So yeah, this light is a new addition. It's quite nice. It's like kind of illuminates the area that you're tufting, which is remarkably helpful. So if you want to change the speed, you always want to start, when you're first learning, always start on the lowest setting. But if you start to notice when you're tufting that your lines start to get a bit gappy, so like, well, I'll show you some tufted lines with this after, but when you do one tufted line, you'll see like you're slow, your stitches will be nice and neat and the way they're supposed to be. But as people get faster and more confident, they start to do lines more quickly, and then what happens is that the stitches are then not as dense, and so you actually start changing the density of the rug because you're not getting as many stitches in. So that's where you really want to watch what you're doing and speed the machine up so that it can keep up with you. So it might feel incredibly fast, you know, like looking at it as a beginner and be like, oh my goodness, but the thing is like you will end up using that speed. There's times where I'm doing backgrounds and I tuft at the maximum speed, which, yeah, seems insane, but you will get there. But yeah, for now, just start at the basic, like that. Okay, so that's kind of the basic introduction to the AKV, and so now we'll go on to maintenance. So I'm just gonna restart so that we've got some chapters that you guys can follow. Hi everyone, Carolyn from All Things EFFY here, and we are looking at the new AKV tufting gun. And in the previous video I just went through kind of the basics of the machine and unboxing it and setting it up. We haven't gone through how to tuft yet. This is just, we're gonna just discuss the parts of the machine, how to maintain it, and how to do some basic alterations so that you can do loop pile, and so you can change the hole size of the tip so that you can use thinner yarns or thicker yarns. Alright, so first, obviously, if you're doing any sort of repairs, touching it, modifications, anything, doing anything, just turn it off. You do not want to get your fingers stuck in the scissors. That will hurt. So first, I will go over oiling. So you want to, number one, have some oil, and you want to have some sort of cleaner. You can also have compressed air. However, I find that a brush tends to get things off a lot more than the compressed air. But maybe a combination of both. We do sell these tufting gun cleaning brushes, and they're with our maintenance kit, which is helpful. But obviously you can find anything that has a nice kind of stiff brush to it. So basically, this one has not been used, but after every use, you want to brush down all the parts. So where you can really get some buildup is between the tip and the scissors down that channel. So you really want to clean that area out, and you want to move this wheel so that you can get at everything. So move it and dust, and then go in and do it, you know, when it's at a different angle, and do more dusting, and just make sure you keep all the fiber buildup from occurring. Fiber buildup, it can bend the parts, and then it can mean that the machine doesn't work because parts are bent and warped. So the biggest common issue that I have seen since I started dealing with these machines is this part in particular. It's hard to do on the when they're brand new, but the tip separates from the scissors, and it just starts to you'll get yarn stuck between the tip and the scissors because it's been bent because there's been so much fiber buildup in the tip. So that's one of the biggest issues I see with that. Then oiling. So to oil the machine, some machines have like little spots on these where you can put a dab of oil in, but this one doesn't have that. So all you do is you put a dab of oil on each bar, and you can do one above and one below, and then you just want to run the machine after you've done that. You don't need a lot of oil. If you just do dabs like that and do it frequently, that's better than overwhelming the machine with a whole bunch of oil. So the oil really is just to keep things moving smoothly. I hate seeing people use the spray oil and just go onto the whole thing, because there's parts of this that are not supposed to be oiled. Some of it is meant to be oiled, like the bars. Other parts are not meant to be oiled. So yeah, just stay away from oiling pretty much anything but the bars. You can also put a dab of oil. I find this can be quite helpful. Yeah, I can't open my own oil bottle. There we go. It's just a dab down there, because that helps keep the scissors moving nicely on that strip that's kind of down the channel. And we'll talk about that strip soon. So that's your basic oiling and cleaning, and try to do it after every single use. The instructions do say to oil every 2 hours. So and it does show you where to actually oil. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go over how can I change the tip size so that particularly our EFFY cotton blend, you can use one strand at a time. However, I do find in order to keep the yarn from falling out, you can adjust the tip size just a little bit, just so it's a little bit more snug, and then that way you can use one strand at a time with no problems. So I'm going to go get some EFFY cotton blend, and I'm going to show you that in the next clip. Hi guys, this is again Caroline from All Things EFFY, and I am here to show you how to adjust the tip size of the AKV. If you want to use EFFY cotton blend and you're finding that the one strand at a time is just slipping out of the gun a little bit too much. So this is such an easy thing to do. Number one, make sure your machine's off. Even unplug it to be extra certain. So first of all, you're going to need your little pouch of tools, which hopefully you've kept. And we'll just dump these out so that we've got everything. And you're going to grab the smallest Allen key. Then you're going to find this screw here, and you're going to just loosen it a teensy tiny bit. So what I mean by that is do 180 rotation. So that was 90 degrees. We're going to do another 90, because you don't want the nut to come loose. So if you loosen this too much, the nut will come off, and then you have to actually pop the top off the gun to get this all fixed. So just as long as you do like 180 to 360, you should be okay. So that's probably maybe about 270 degrees of turning there. A pair of tweezers that I use to then, I'm going to have to zoom in on this, but basically you use something that can then hook into this little tiny dot, and then you can push this piece up so that it can close up the entire hole, or it can be completely wide open. So I just don't want to damage these scissors while I'm doing this. I just realized I was probably using the other end. So I don't want it quite as far up as I put it there. I just want it a little bit lower. Okay, I might need to loosen it just a tiny bit more. And as I'm loosening it, I am looking at the opposite side, I'm looking at the washer that holds it in place in here, so that I make sure I'm not overdoing it. Because I just want it to move easily. It moved up easily, but it's harder to move down unless it's a little bit looser. And then again, we just go in there. So I think that should be good for the EFFY cotton blend. So what I'll do is I'll go through threading it just so you can see, and you can obviously adjust it however you want, however it makes you comfortable. But this is an excellent way if you're finding that you've got everything set up correctly and your yarn feeding system is flowing really smoothly, but your yarn still keeps slipping out. This is an excellent way to try and reduce that. So I do this a lot in workshops. I'm constantly altering the tip size depending on the yarns that we're using. So if we're using rug wool, I make the tip size a bit bigger, and if we're using EFFY cotton blend, then I make it a little bit smaller. So now, don't forget, close this up once you're done. So righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, just remember that, and tighten that up nice and tight so there's not going to be any slippage when you're tufting. Remember that this vibrates less than the previous types of machines, but obviously it still does vibrate. And you just, any vibrations, if you have slightly loose screws or parts, if the machine vibrates, then they can just start to vibrate right off. So just nice and tight. Okay, so now, obviously, turn it on. Still working as it was. That's all good. So, obviously, the machine comes with a threader, but if you've ordered our starter pack, you'll get 3 of our threaders, which are just our brand color. Just trying to have a little bit of branding going on. And so with these threaders, all you need to do is, it might take you a few times to just remember, but it's a very simple process. So you go up through the nose and then through the yarn guide. Then obviously this would be fed through my feeding system, but I'm going to grab the EFFY cotton blend and I'm going to slip it through that loop, and then I'm going to pull. And the only part that can be a tiny bit annoying is there's a little hook at the top of these threaders and the yarn can get stuck in there. So I'm really lazy, so sometimes I just leave it hanging like this, and then I know where my threader is as I'm working, because it'll just be hanging off of the tufted work. So I do that quite a bit. But if you're a little bit less lazy than me, then you can take it off and put it somewhere where you remember to have it. Threaders aren't that expensive, but it's obviously like you want to try and keep them if you can. So that is then threaded, and you can see, because I've altered the tip size, well, I don't know if you can see, but I can definitely feel it, that it's flowing smoothly, but it's not so loose that I feel like anything I do, it's just going to slip right out. So this works beautifully for the cotton blend. And obviously then you just turn it on and do your tufting thing. So that's if you want to use 1 strand at a time of EFFY cotton blend. When I use 1 strand at a time, I do put the lines quite close together. So I'll do a demo of that as well to add to this video, so you can see my spacing. I find if I use 2 strands of this, it just gets a bit too difficult to get the glue into the fibers correctly. So the glue really needs to get into the base of the fibers. It needs to get right to the cloth. It needs to get up the base of the fibers. So if you've got too much density of yarn, it just can't soak through all of it unless you're using a very liquidy latex, and even then it can be quite difficult because yeah. So I definitely, for this brand of yarn, I really recommend 1 strand at a time and just tufting quite densely together. Obviously you don't want to overdo it because you want to still be able to carve. So if you're new to tufting, if you dense too much together, carving can be really challenging. So you need to keep your spacing as even as you can to create a nice even density that you can then carve. So I will go through what that looks like in a future video, but that's just to show you how to set up the AKV to use with our EFFY cotton blend.